Welcome back to the neighborhood, boys and girls. My next guest is Mike Radie. Mike, welcome to the neighborhood.
Hey, thanks for having me.
Mike from Get Seen, Get Sold showed up today in a really cool, spiffy outfit. Probably the best prank that I've had in quite a long time. I got to tell you, it took me like 3 weeks to find that sweater. How long did it take you?
Immediately. I went right on Amazon, found it. I actually just pulled your picture up and held it on one screen and scrolled through Amazon and found it in no time.
That is so awesome. That is so
It's
great.
called the Mr. Mortgage.
The Mr. Mortgage sweater. I love it. I love it. So we do a different thing. We're not really like the most of the podcasts that you see are like, we're braggadocious. We're going to talk about how great we are. I like to do... I like to know about the people. So we do like a little past, present, and future thing. So we were talking beforehand a little bit about your previous to real estate life. Let's talk a little bit about that. What was your journey? You've had some interesting jobs and some interesting career stops. How did you get here?
So early on, it started off for me. I was the furthest thing from real estate ever. I dropped out of school. And I started working in a meat factory in Brooklyn where my dad had been working for God knows how many years. Then I transitioned into a truck driver. I drove a truck probably for about 10 plus years. And then due to a really great bad events or whatever you want to call it, a blessing, a not blessing or whatever, my license was suspended due to my behavior. And I got rear-ended in the truck. And when the company found out, they had let me go. So when that happened, I went on a little bit more of a downward spiral in life. And then it took a little bit for me to get my stuff back together. And I got a job working for a cable TV company. I didn't know, I was an installer, but I didn't even know how to put a fitting on. But through determination and everything else, in several years, I worked my way up to the director of operations position, and then was in charge of 6 different offices, 3 states, like 300 trucks, which was great. The issue was I started getting burnt out because no matter how hard I worked, no matter how many hours I put in, I can only make X amount of money, and I can only go so far. I wasn't the owner of the company. I reached the top to where I can be with these guys, and that was it. So then I started to work for myself. So I had a company I started called Take the Tour Now, which is a virtual tour company. We do the virtual tours that you see on like Zillow and stuff like that. Now, we started this back in 2015, 2017. My primary goal was my customers were all going to be like real estate agents. The issue I was having was now I had to beat the still photographer's price. So I had dropped down these prices to bottom. I was successful in the fact that I was getting a lot of business, just wasn't yielding a lot of revenue. I came to the realization after 2 years of busting my ass that I'm a real estate agent, but real estate agents are cheap, they're complacent, they're lazy, and they don't answer their phones. I had an agent call me and say, "Hey, Mike, I sold a house off the virtual tour, sight unseen, that you did. They never visited the house, and they purchased the house off the virtual tour." So jokingly, I said, "Oh, you should cut me in on the commission." He says, "You know what? If you had a real estate license," he goes, I'd break you off a little something, on it. But I didn't have a real estate license. So I said, "You know what? I have a few $100. I'm going to go to real estate school." So I went, I put myself through real estate school. I took the 3 or 4 week course so that I can work both, the job and go to school. And I just hustled every day during real estate school. We went to real estate school out in Medford, Garden State Real Estate Academy, with Phil before they switched owners. Mm-hmm. So everybody would go out for lunch for like an hour and, go across the street to the bar and have lunch. I sat in the building, I did my emails, and then I walked around to the attached Keller Williams office, and I started selling virtual tours to other agents while I was there. So I paid for my real estate school like 3, maybe 4 times over while I was on my lunch. And, and then I got my license. I became a real estate agent.
Nice.
Yeah, I figured I'm already doing the marketing for the real estate agents.
Sure.
I just needed to learn the paperwork piece of it.
Right.
So.
What was your first job ever?
So my first job ever was shining shoes on the subway in New York. I had to be about 11 years old.
Okay.
Because I always had a taste for the finer things or nicer things, like, to what I thought was nice. Mm-hmm. But back in 1982, when I was 11, I wanted Adidas shell top sneakers, and even back then they were still $55, $60, which was unheard of. And my family is, they're from regular means, but that's a little high end for stuff. So my dad used to say, hey, you need to go figure out how to earn money. There was a Subway station down the street from my house. I'd go down there with the shine box and I'd shine shoes on the subway. It was my very first job.
Nice. Were you a snow shoveler?
Oh yeah, no, living in the city in Brooklyn.
The best.
Yeah,
Man. That was the best.
Snow shoveling. We do yard cleanups. I used to take news. So I would go into the newspaper box, buy one paper, and take the rest of them, and I'd bring those down to the subway with me also, and I'd sell all the newspapers while I was shining shoes, even though I kind of didn't do the right thing with that.
Yeah,
but, it is what it is. I was on the grind.
Yeah, we were fracturing laws as children.
That's exactly it. I was making my way.
Nice. So you got into real estate, and give us a little bit about your first couple years in the business, because that was like not the easiest of times for a little bit.
It wasn't the easiest of times, and for a few reasons. One, I'm not originally from South Jersey. I'm originally from New York and Brooklyn. I didn't have much of a sphere here. And all my relatives and stuff and friends.
And you didn't know anything about really good sports and stuff like that? You had all horrible sporting events?
Yeah, because I watched a lot of the Eagles and a lot of the Phillies, so I was just really learning about dirt sports.
I was thinking about Mets and Knicks,
fans.
but I wasn't sure.
Yeah, I'm more of a Yankees-Giants kind of guy. So, I didn't have too much, and real estate school doesn't teach you how to do real estate. They teach you how to pass the test.
Yeah.
Ironically, I started doing some advertising on Facebook, not paid advertising, just generic posting in different groups and stuff like that. I got a phone call within like 2 weeks of getting my license, and I'll never forget this lady, Cintu is her name. She, and I thank her because she set it all off for me. But I went up to her condo and we did the walkthrough, and I said all the right things and everything else, and we're getting ready to sign the listing agreement. As she has it in her hand, she says to me, so how many houses have you sold? And I said, none. She goes, what do you mean none? I said, you're the first person that I'm talking to about listing a house. So she's like, I don't think I could let you sell my condo. I really need somebody that's experienced and knows what they're doing. And I said to her, look, I get it. I understand where you're coming from. I said, but here's the thing. One, you called me. I didn't call you. So obviously whatever I'm doing worked for you to find me. I said, the second thing is I'm hungry. I'm hungry and I want this. I want this real estate career and I want it to go big. So I ended up getting the listing. She gave me a 30-day instead of a 90-day. Okay. And I sold the condo in 7 days.
Right.
And this is pre-COVID, so times were a little hard. Mm-hmm. But then what I did was I took that one listing. I used the open house to get a few more buyers. I used the open house from that condo to get a couple more listings. And it just really started to snowball. And I made sure that I kept everybody that was within earshot abreast of what I was doing in real estate. I posted it everywhere. I'd write it on a bathroom wall, Mike sold 3 houses today, because I was just that hungry to get into this business, and that's what I had to do, is just, drive and drive and drive.
And we talked a little bit about your kids.
Mm-hmm.
We both, funny enough, have awesome outfits and
great taste, and we both have 7 kids.
Right, that's awesome.
Yeah.
How do you impress upon your kids, because the generations are totally different, things like work ethic, determination,
so that's
the
great.
Grind?
Yeah. So a lot of that I had learned from my parents, from like my dad. My dad was a hardworking guy, and we all have our faults in life. Me, you, our dads, whoever. So the one great takeaway I got from my dad was the hard work. I think through my experience and through the work I have done with the ethics of being such a hard worker and determined, my boys were able to pick up on a lot of that. Mm-hmm. I will say this, my older set of boys, I would say, the ones that are in their late 20s and early 30s, have extremely hard work ethic, because it was just, that's when I was a blue-collar guy, dirty, lifting boxes, grinding away. Mm-hmm. I didn't seem like the office type. My middle son is kind of a little bit wishy-washy, a little bit more internet. Bougie. Yeah, not so much bougie, but a little bit more timid. I can't see him doing some of the stuff that I did when I was his age. Okay. And then my last set of kids, from like 15 down, entitled.
Yeah.
And the reason being is because I got a little easier, I got a little older, and I got a little tired, and I make a little more money now than what I used to, so I can afford a certain different lifestyle and a little bit more niceties, and it's easier.
Yeah.
Like, so for example, we were driving down Tennessee during COVID. Here's my one son. He's got this $800 iPhone in his hand, and he's telling me how the Wi-Fi sucks in the van. And I'm thinking, the Wi-Fi sucks in the van. You have an $800 iPhone in your hand, and you're telling me about the Wi-Fi sucking in the van because there was no cell phone service?
Yeah.
I'm not a hitter, but I wanted to throw this kid out the window.
It's crazy because I talk to a lot of people all over the place, and I'm always interested in the work ethic kind of thing. And it's like, I can't imagine my kids' age now, working a full-time job when they're 13. You know what I mean? Like, and it's a shame because there's always these controversial things like, oh, these immigrants are coming in and they're doing these jobs and they're taking jobs from that. And I think to myself, my kid's not going out in the field and picking blueberries for 14 hours. Like, them blueberries ain't getting picked if it isn't for somebody to. So, as an experienced parent, because more than real estate agents watch us, what do you think the one thing that you're glad you did and you're glad you instilled in your kids, and then one thing you're looking back on it, you're like, I wish I would have done it a little differently?
So I think I'm glad that, we try to raise our boys with some of the older values, with chivalry, respect for women, sit at the table, wait for the ladies to sit. We're not holy rollers or anything like that, but we'll say a quick little dinner prayer. Whether it means something or it doesn't, that's just what we do. Manners at the table, open doors, be polite. Those are the things that I try to teach my kids. When my kids call me and they have an issue, I'm not there to solve the issue for them anymore. That's not my job. My job is to help you try to figure out how to get to the solution. Because if I do it for you, you'll never be able to do it.
Yeah.
And I'm not teaching you anything like that. And that's how it's got to be done. Unfortunately, my dad was kind of like an absent dad for the most part. He was home and he was working, but he was always working, so he was always away. I don't fault him. He did what he felt he had to do for the family.
Right. But
I had to figure out a lot of stuff on my own in life, and that led to some trials and tribulations. It led me down some really dark, dirty paths too. Mm-hmm. That was really tough and things I had to get over in life. But I think more or less trying to help my kids solve problems. I think where I go wrong is sometimes I get a little frustrated. And by the time you're with you got your seventh kid, you're a little worn out.
Yeah.
So I'm a little quicker to maybe give an answer or let a little thing slide here or there, and then it snowballs into a little bit. My youngest son is 9. His bedtime's 8:30. More often than not, he's sitting in my bedroom at 9:30 watching me play Call of Duty.
That's awesome. And, there's a real popular statement that your mess is your message, and going from kind of being a black sheep to someone that people look up to, and we talked about recovery and stuff like that. How do you incorporate that? How much do you tell your kids, and how much do you make that public? So that everybody knows what we're talking about. In January I celebrated 22 years of sobriety. So, which is a major feat for me. I can't speak for anybody else about their sobriety, what they had to go through. We all have to go through our own things. What I've had to do, though, in my sobriety is I've had to have a discussion with my older boys because I wasn't there for them when they were younger. And I had to apologize to them when they became men and let them understand that, hey, listen, I wasn't there for you when I was younger because I couldn't be there for myself. So I'd love to be here for you now, and I'm asking for your forgiveness, and I'm asking for your grace. You don't have to forgive me. You don't have to give me grace. You can be angry at me your entire life. This is who I am now and where I'm at. With my younger set of children, my 18-year-old all the way down, they've never seen me have a drink or anything. I've been completely sober. Doesn't mean I've been the best person either, though. Right. I'm sure I've been, a son of a bitch a lot, even going through sobriety, and sometimes I still am. But I do the best I can, and my kids do understand that, what? I'm a sober person, that's how I live, but that doesn't dictate or change our lives. We still have fun, we do what we have to do. It's just something that I don't do. Right.
And I think the biggest part of my sobriety now is I got to make sure that I'm constantly giving back and helping when I can. I don't go searching for people to help. I help people that ask for help that need it because they have to be ready to receive it. I don't want to force it on anybody.
And there's been like a change. I remember I've been clean for 26 years, and I remember my mom when we were younger telling me like, "Yeah, you don't want to talk about that. You don't let anybody know." And I remember like when I first got clean, especially I got into the mortgage industry 21 years ago, people were like, "You don't want to talk about that. You don't want to know." And then it was like there was a change probably about 15 years ago where it became okay to talk about, where now like everything is a little bit more open. You know, everyone's had a kid, a nephew, a cousin, somebody who's had a pill problem, somebody who's been in rehab. So there was this shift from don't invite him to the party to, oh shit, cousin Joey's in trouble, we got to call Jim to go through it. And now it's like, for me, it's a badge of honor kind of thing. Mm-hmm. But I'm not afraid of talking about it in public. I promote it when, my clean day and things like that. How do you use that in your everyday life to help you excel and achieve things?
I mean, so I try to live the best, most honest life that I can. I am also of the belief that it's nothing to be embarrassed about. It's where I come from. And, you're right. We all have somebody in our family, if it's not ourselves, that have dealt with some type of an issue with addiction or whatever. And it could be mental health, could be depression, anything along those lines. If, you hear people say, well, if you had cancer, you wouldn't necessarily hide it. You take medication, you get it taken care of. I see the same thing with addiction. So that's what I do, and I think the fact that I'm open and I'm okay with talking about it shows that I am a human being. I am every man, every person, every woman, every child in the world. That's who I am, and it levels the playing field because I don't live my life with people in ranks and positions. I don't care if you're the janitor or if you're the CEO of Crown Mortgage. I'm going to sit down. I'm going to have the same conversation with you at the same level, no matter what.
Awesome. We're going to take a short break real quick to reload the camera, and we're going to come back and finish up with our final segment. Back from that little break from our sponsors, if we have any, which we don't, but we'd like to say we did. Okay, so we did the past, we did a little bit of the present. I want to touch a little bit more on the present stuff. What do you do to keep your sanity other than recovery? Do you do any type of meditation, any type of religious stuff, any type of podcast, self-help? What do you do to stop you from choking people out when you're driving down the road?
Right, and you know what? That's a really good question because there are days, regardless of where I'm at, that sometimes I feel like choking people out because, I'm not perfect. But you know what? I get to spend a lot of time with my kids where I make an effort to take the time off from work and carve it out. Even if it's 2 hours in the middle of the day and I have to go back to do work later, I make sure I try to attend as many as their sports practices, their games. We do stuff like that. We try to plan trips and excursions with our children, and we give them experiences so that we're doing something cool instead of them getting a new bike or whatever. Don't worry, they got bikes. Don't send bikes. But I'm saying a gift may be, hey, we're going to go away for the weekend and we're going to go fishing or we're going to go hiking somewhere. So I try to do that. And the other thing too is I go to therapy. I have somebody that I talk to who's outside the family, who I can talk with and just kind of get a load off my chest and get a third eye perspective into what my world is. And my therapist is great because they hold me accountable, and I love that. And I think that's part of how I get the stress off too. I hold myself accountable for what I do, and I reflect on what I've done, and I reflect on how I could have handled a situation different. The biggest thing too is I make sure I listen to people. I make sure I validate them. I want them to know they've been heard. And sometimes, people don't want answers. They don't want you to solve their problems. They just want to be heard and validated. Yeah. So I try to focus on that. And I will attend, 22 years later, I will attend an AA meeting here and there when I'm feeling a little off balance. Sometimes I like to go sit down, whether I share or not, just listening to other people's hope, strength, and experience. And it reminds me of where I've come from and where I could possibly go back if I don't keep my shit together.
Nice. All right, let's go future for a little bit. Let's move the calendar to May of 2026.
All right.
Give me some vision board stuff, some goals that you have, some boxes that you're going to check off with your personal life and your business life in the next year or two.
So in my personal life, I'd like to see myself get a little bit more healthier in the overall sense. Mentally, I think I'm heading in the right track. Physically, I definitely need some help. I'm not a small... I'm a small guy in height, but I'm a big guy in stature. I would love to get my physical health in a better shape. I would also love to make sure that, I'm continuing to build my family unit. I don't need any more kids. 7's enough. We don't want to live in a shoe. They don't do shoe mortgages. I want to make sure that I'm keeping them in a whole. I want to make sure that I'm teaching them the values of family and everything else. And I want to see that unit stay together. Too often, we see too many families that are broken up, not just because of divorce or anything, but brothers and sisters don't talk to each other for years over a little thing, and then it spreads, and now there's no road back for them. So I want to see family health in keeping together. As far as my business goes, I'm pretty content with where I'm at now. I'm not saying I don't want to grow, and there is, a mark to grow some, but considering where I come from, being homeless 23 years ago and sleeping, in hotel rooms that I broke into and catering halls and stuff like that 23 years ago today, having that and now having what I have today, I'm happy. I feel good. I don't need a new Corvette. I don't need to have, 5 houses and vacation homes and stuff like that. I don't need $1 million in the bank. I need my wife. I need my family. I need my health. And you know what? If the business grows slowly and becomes something great, I don't know, maybe one day we're going to have the Get Seen, Get Sold brokerage. I don't know. Or maybe I'll just work for somebody and be happy as could be.
Have you ever thought about mentoring other agents? Have you ever thought about you doing, a lot of people, I do the listings, you take the buyers kind of thing. Let me take you and coach you on how to be an agent, or...
So I do have a team. We have the Get Seen, Get Sold team. So there's a couple of young ladies that work with me. So I end up doing some mentoring there and some teaching there. Part of life just in general, whether it's recovery or anything else, is, giving it away and constantly expanding. Mm-hmm. If we're not teaching people and progression planning, we're not going to grow. And we have to teach everybody around us and, and help them thrive, which, builds us up too.
Sure.
So yeah, I would definitely love to mentor people. My biggest thrill, honestly, I've been fortunate. Hundreds of deals already in just a few years. My first-time home buyers are my favorite people.
Yeah, man.
They really are. We just got a young lady in a house, had a real bad luck time with her last 2 relationships, was completely destitute last year, trying to find an apartment. We closed on a house for her 2 weeks ago. She never thought she was going to be able to do it. Single mom, 4 kids, and she's knocked it out of the park.
Yeah.
And that's what gives me a great sense of accomplishment, and that's what I want to do.
Yeah, that's the closings. I mean, don't get me wrong. I want to help anyone with the willingness to do it, but the I've had some closings where the person never thought they could do it. Whether one guy was like in jail for 9 years and was out for about a year, and we had to do a ton of cleanup from stuff from his past. But those closings where someone gets the keys where they never thought that was going to be possible, that's definitely the way to go.
Yeah.
All right, now your personal question. Not that we haven't been personal already, but I'm going with sports because we talked a little sports already.
All right.
So you can go back in time and witness any sporting event that ever happened live, and you can bring one person with you. What's the event that you want to go see, and who do you want to bring?
You know what? I think I lost my dad a little over a year ago now. Well, actually, in a couple weeks it'll be a year. I think I'd like to go see the Yankees with my dad one last time and see Thurman Munson play before he was in his plane crash.
Huh.
Not any particular specific game. It's just one of the memories that I have of my dad that was a good memory, that we were together and it was a happy time. Not that every time was bad or ever. It was just something that I relate to that was a good time. It was one of the last few times that we were able to spend some time together while I was younger.
Nice.
And I think that's where I'd want to be.
Nice, awesome. Mike, thank you so much.
Yeah, thanks for
coming
having
in.
me.
Awesome. We'll be back with the next guest on Mr. Mortgage's Neighborhood.